He's a writer and podcaster for the Arrowhead Pride podcast. I want to welcome to the show, Price Carter. Price, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yes, let's get right to it, Price. So last year, Patrick Mahomes, he won NFL MVP, 41 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, over 5,000 passing yards, led his Kansas City Chiefs to a Super Bowl victory over the Philadelphia Eagles on a bum ankle. So heading into this season, what are your expectations for Patrick Mahomes, considering he's already a two-time NFL Super Bowl champion and already has multiple MVPs on his resume? What's your expectations for Mahomes heading into the season?
Well, whenever you have a player like Patrick Mahomes, the expectation pretty much every year has to be contending for a Super Bowl, especially whenever you combine him with a combination of Andy Reid and Travis Kelce. That tandem there has really just kind of cemented Super Bowl contention as the expectation. I think the last big question that had to be answered about Pat got answered last year with, can he elevate lesser talent? In the AFC Championship game, several wide receivers went down. Kadarius Toney left, Juju Smith-Schuster left, and he's slinging balls in the fourth quarter to a guy named Marcus Kemp, who most people probably didn't even know existed. So I think that was the last question. You know, there was a lot of people who, you know, talked about how blessed he was to be in the situation he was with Andy Reid and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Sammy Watkins and Kareem Hunt when he entered the league. And he slowly but surely answered the question that he can elevate lesser talent. And the Chiefs have continued to parlay that into this coming season. So for me, now it's just, how many times can you get in the dance to get to the Super Bowl? Last year, him winning the Super Bowl and getting that MVP, it was kind of borrowed time. That wasn't really a year that a lot of people expected them to be true Super Bowl contenders, and they were able to do it. So the Chiefs now, their goal is just to get themselves into the playoffs with a healthy Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and a team that can, you know, contend for Super Bowl, and see how many times you can get there and end up winning it all.
Now, last year, obviously, in the playoff matchup against the Jaguars, he injured his ankle, and he played on that bum ankle in the AFC Championship game against the Bengals and in the Super Bowl against the Eagles. I assume Mahomes is 100% heading into the season, Price. Is that true? What have you heard about him and that ankle injury that he suffered last year in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think he stated in rookie camp or OTAs that he was still feeling it just a little bit, but there's been no restrictions on him in camp. He's been a full participant, and they're not concerned about it at all. The thing with that injury is that it's one that just needs time to, you know, obviously there's no invasive surgery or anything like that. It's just, it needs time to heal, and that time he didn't have in the playoff game. It's usually, you know, about a 4 to 6 week injury. He was able to play through it with the help of the training staff and just some grit, and I'm sure a world record amount of painkillers, but you know, he got through it. So he's looking good and healthy for the beginning of the season.
Now, you mentioned the wide receivers, and I feel like last year, Price, that was the biggest question for the Chiefs offense, was their skill position players, because they lost Tyreek Hill from the year prior. And last year in the Super Bowl, you saw Juju Smith-Schuster step up in a major, major way for the Chiefs in their offense. This year, they got Kadarius Toney. They got MVS. They got Sky Moore. They got Richie James. Who do you believe is the number one receiver on this Chiefs football team heading into the season?
It's tough. The Chiefs have definitely went in an opposite direction. Before it was Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and a bunch of guys, and now it legitimately feels like they could have 6 or 7 wide receivers on the roster who you could all see making some sort of impact. It's, you know, the concept of quantity over quality. I think right now you kind of still have to give the nod to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but he's kind of proven. I mean, his 2 quarterbacks have been Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. He's proven that he's about 650 yards, a vertical threat, and probably, you know, 4 or 5 touchdowns a season. That's kind of what he is experience-wise. You have to give him the nod. But I think there's a pretty good shot that either Sky Moore or Rashee Rice are the players that emerge as the wide receiver one for the team. Two very different players. Sky Moore last year had basically a redshirt year, but he was coming from the MAC. He has admitted, even the play that he scored on in the Super Bowl, he was on the wrong side of the formation. He's admitted that he struggled with the offense. But one thing that has not gone understated with him is that he throws everything he catches everything that's thrown his way. He's a great route runner. He has great release off the line of scrimmage. And now that he knows the offense, I think he's going to kind of eat up some of that Juju Smith-Schuster role, where it's just, hey, Kelsey's going to be eating the zone. MVS is going to be eating the guys over the top. You just got to be able to catch the ball when it's thrown your way. He's got a little bit of shake and bake after the catch, but I think he has a chance. Rashee Rice has looked really good in preseason. He's a guy that at the beginning part of the draft cycle was probably a first-round pick by a lot of people's accounts. He had a turf toe injury that plagued him all season at SMU and still was dominant. And he's looked really good after the catch in the preseason. The Chiefs have made a real concerted effort to get him the ball. So Andy Reid, rookie wide receivers typically have not made a big impact, but he's done a lot more than most have in the preseason. So we'll just have to see.
When it comes to the players and the coaching staff, Price, I believe there are four individuals who are the most important for the Chiefs to repeat as Super Bowl champions. That's Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones. Now, I saw earlier Chris Jones indicated on social media that he's willing to continue his holdout until week 8. And I believe that Chris Jones is an important factor in the Chiefs being able to repeat as Super Bowl champions. So what do you make of this situation with Chris Jones and the Chiefs organization right now? What do you make of it?
It's not great. There's really no other way to describe it. You can't go back and watch the AFC Championship game, and the Chiefs cannot win that game without Chris Jones being a dominant player. He was a defensive player of the year candidate. He brings something very special to the defensive tackle position that most players do not. And frankly, this is a little bit of a debacle here for the Chiefs, in my opinion. I think that the Chiefs, if they have to be able to read the market and know what this player is going to command in free agency. Everyone knew that, this was about the time that Chris Jones was going to need a new deal. If Chris Jones was going to be this difficult to work with, which all accounts are, the Chiefs have made a real offer to him in the ballpark of $27 million per year. He wants more than that, and either wants to be equal to Aaron Donald's APY, or he wants to break Aaron Donald's deal. And the Chiefs need to be able to read that market. How much better would we feel about this Chiefs roster right now if it had another first-round pick or second-round pick via Chris Jones trade like they did Tyreek Hill last year? The Chiefs have, and I will give Brett Veach credit, they have shown that they're not going to give up for anyone other than number 15. They're not going to let anyone take them hostage. And, maybe it's the right move. Chris Jones is going to be 30 soon. He's 29 right now, but he plays a position that, he's a bigger player. He's had seasons that have fluctuated up and down as far as productivity goes due to some effort. He's a transcendental player, a truly elite player at the position. And I cannot even pretend that the Chiefs are going to be a better team without him this year than with him on the field. But it's just unprecedented, really. I can't really think of a player that has had such a strong holdout on a contract that they've already negotiated. Chris Jones today, even with Jeffrey Simmons, with Quinnen Williams, with all these players, Deron Payne getting new deals, he's still top 5 in terms of guaranteed money at his contract. And he's, threatening to hold out actual games. At first, we thought it was just, he wanted to get a late start to camp. Then he doesn't want to come to camp. Okay, maybe be in by game 1. If he really holds out through the season, through week 8, like he says, it would really be pretty unprecedented. And quite frankly, I think as good as the vibes are here in KC, I think he might have overstayed them, because it's not just the holdout. It's the cryptic social media post. Every day there's a new one. He's loving every second of this. And frankly, when you look at how NFL players go in the league, they want to get drafted in this league. They want to stay in the league. They want to get paid in this league, and they want to win a ring in this league, in that order usually. He's had all of those, so he's kind of a true wild card. You don't really know. He's a smart guy. I'm very curious to see how this plays out.
And I agree, Price. I thought last year in the AFC Championship game, Chris Jones was the best player on the field. They didn't win that game without Chris Jones' dominance and the way he was able to dominate that Bengals offensive line It didn't. I don't think he had a lot of sacks in the AFC Championship game, but he definitely disrupted what the Bengals offense was trying to do. I think that again, when I look at the four major individuals that's going to help this Chiefs team repeat is Andy Reid, Mahomes, Kelsey, and Chris Jones. He's got to be at the top of their priorities and at the top of individuals who have to perform at a high level for them to repeat as champions. But I want to transition real quick, Price, to the entire AFC as a whole. In the AFC South, we know the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the come up. They got Trevor Lawrence. They played hard last year in that playoff game against the Chiefs. They came up short, but they played hard and played the Chiefs tough. In the AFC East, you got the Bills with Josh Allen. The Jets got Aaron Rodgers now. The Dolphins still got Tyreek Hill. They still got Jalen Waddle. And in the AFC North, the Bengals got Joe Burrow. The Ravens got Lamar Jackson, Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers. The Browns got Deshaun Watson for 17 games this year. And in the AFC West, in that division, with the Chiefs, you still got the Chargers who have Justin Herbert. Who do you believe is the biggest threat to the Chiefs being able to repeat as AFC champions next year and get back to the Super Bowl? Who do you think is their biggest threat? Which team?
Yeah, I feel like right now you definitely have to give the nod to the Bengals still. I think, one, they have shown that they play the Chiefs tough. They just know the things that the Chiefs struggle with. Lou Anarumo is a fantastic defensive coordinator, and they always play the Chiefs tough. And I really liked, as much as I hate to say it as a Chiefs fan, I really liked what they did in free agency in the draft. Orlando Brown is, probably slightly overpaid for what he is as a left tackle, but he brings something to that line that they desperately needed, and that's reliability and dependability. And he kind of has that rising tide that raises all the boats at the harbor type of effect where, now they've got more depth where La'el Collins, kind of their swing tackle. Jonah Williams slides over to the right side. I've liked what they've done. Joe Burrow's obviously an elite quarterback. The weapons are fantastic, and they very much are in that window where they can do whatever they need to win a Super Bowl. They've never won a Super Bowl in Cincinnati. They have their last window here of cheap Joe Burrow. T. Higgins needs a new deal. It won't be long before we're talking about Jamar Chase. They extended Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt. That defense is predominantly built through free agency. They're going to, rely on Dax Hill at the safety position. But I've got to give the nod to them. Although I will say that, I could see a situation where almost any one of the teams you described could be in the AFC Championship game facing the Chiefs, or, there's going to come a time where the Chiefs probably don't end at the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl, as much as I hate to say it. But to me, the AFC, you got the Bills, who a lot of people kind of feel like they were leaving them for dead after how the season went last year. I'm not quite ready to say that. I think they had it's really just going to come down to two things. Can that team commit to being able to run the ball in situations where they can take some stuff off of Josh Allen's plate, so he's not such a frantic player that turns the ball over in inopportune times? They've tried to do that with Osiris Torres, the guard out of Florida, the tight end that they took as well, that they're going to use as kind of a slot player. And they've made improvements on the defense. Their defense just under Leslie Frazier continued to just collapse against the elite offenses in the playoffs. And it's kind of the static way that they'd play. They'd let everything come to them, which worked great in the regular season when you're facing backup quarterbacks, but in the playoffs, it just hurt them. So is Sean McDermott going to be able to elevate that defense? Because they're quietly one of the oldest rosters in the league. So there's, and then you get into the Browns with Deshaun Watson, what he's going to look like, what's Lamar going to look like with the new offensive coordinator. There's a lot of situations that I feel could go either way. I assume one or two of them are going to pan out. Like, could it be the Rodgers with the Jets? Could it be that Tua stays healthy and that Dolphins defense revamped with Vic Fangio? Is that going to take off? There's going to be a couple of disappointments in there too, like we saw last year with the Broncos.
He's a writer and podcaster for the Arrowhead podcast. He is Price Carter. Price, let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, you can follow me on X now at Arrowhead Price is my handle. And you can read all my work at arrowheadpride.com.
By the way, Price, I still call it Twitter. I'm just used to calling it Twitter. I haven't called it X one time. I'm not since it's been renamed X. I still call it Twitter. I'm just used to calling it Twitter.
Yeah, it's not getting better. Let's put it that way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Price, I'm gonna definitely bring you on again. I'm gonna try to bring you on again before the season starts, and I'm gonna definitely bring you on throughout the season. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me.